Hey everybody, this is a Sweet Stuff Saturday recorded on a Sunday, and I just wanted to go through and talk about a knife I got this week. This is the Millet Knives Torrent V3, and this is an updated version of a knife I reviewed a long time ago on the website. And this is a knife I have been waiting for. I reviewed that original one, which I received in a trade, and I didn't like the Damasteel. It was fine, it looked okay. I'm just not a Damasteel fan. And so when the time came after the review, I flipped the knife. And I regretted it pretty much immediately because this was a knife that I loved the look of. I'm not usually a complex detail, like heavily machined knife fan. I prefer something that looks like this. Very, very simple, very, very elegant. But for some strange reason, there was something about the Millet Torrent that really spoke to me. And so for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been trying to find one. And Millet recently posted that they had a batch available on, I think it was 5 of them. They had a batch available on their Instagram feed, and I reached out to them and I purchased it. And it is every bit the cool knife I remember it to be. This knife has S90V blade steel, as you can see there, but it still has all of the really sweet details that I liked about the knife. These little extra terraced cutout holes for the screws, the intricately made slot here for your finger. It has multiple levels of machining in it. And then this clip, which at first blush looks like a stamped steel pocket clip, but actually isn't. There is just a lot of milling that goes on in this knife. This knife has something called the zirconium blasted finish. As you can see, it has a little bit of texture to it and also has a little bit of color. It's like a very, very, very light orange peel with some darker touches to it. It almost kind of looks like oil slick a little bit, but not really. The inlay is absolutely perfect. I mean, this thing is smooth. There are no voids in the carbon fiber. As you can see, every little detail about the knife is really, really well done. Every single thing lines up, locks in. I mean, some of the knives today, none of these knives have it, but some of the knives today have these huge blade wells where the blade kind of just, falls somewhere in the middle. But in my mind, one of the nicer features of a well-machined knife is that you have this very tight, as you can see, look at this, very tight blade well, where the blade just fits in. There's no wasted space. And the one reason I like this is because not only does it show that there's some real machining prowess behind the knife's maker, but it also keeps the knife pretty thin. You get these big, thick, slabby blades in these big gappy blade wells, you're just adding unnecessary thickness to the knife. And none of these knives do that, but there are knives out there that do that, and it's just something that bothers me. So one of the reasons I bought all 4 of these knives out is because they have a lot of similarities. I mean, these are all, designed to be nicer everyday carry knives, but they all have sort of a different level of machining. And so if you look at it like this, we start out with something pretty simple. And this is the Sepenza 31. This one is in S45 VN steel. You don't have much in the way of machining here. You have essentially a chamfered piece of titanium on each side of the handle. And then you have a really nice, easy to use blade shape. This is a great knife, and this is a great knife because of its simplicity. You have a step up from that where you have these really broad chamfers on a carbon fiber scale, and on the other side you have titanium. With this little machining thing here and some extra chamfering, it gives this knife, which is the Zero Tolerance ZT0545, it gives it a little bit more visual interest. This is not as complex as the machining you'll see on other knives, but it's pretty good. It's a thin knife with a very tight blade well and an excellent Magna Cut blade. I like this blade a lot. The one thing that I would say is this is not the best flipping knife I've ever handled, but what are you gonna do? Very thin, like that blade a lot. The next knife is the very hard to find Hinder Dauntless. This is actually the Hinder Mini Dauntless. This thing is my favorite Hinderer by a country mile. It is really, really nice. It fits well in the hand, and there's lots of little cool details. You know, Hinderer has always been a big fan of like exposed machining, exposed screws, to the point where some of his knives seem like overly covered in screw heads. But this is a cool knife because it combines the sort of tighter, more conservative aesthetic that made Triple Op Design famous with a little bit of the Hinderer flourish on all of the cool, you know, little touches and blade, little machining marks. So, you know, you have the fullers on both sides of the blade. The fullers continue to the handle. Each one of these machine head, screw heads is sort of a flourish. There's also these on the other side and make the standoffs work. Just a lot of nice touches. This little, the very nicely blasted blade finish. And then you have these very, very nicely machined spines and jimping. It's perfect. It's enough grip to give your finger something to hold on to, but not so much grip as to tear your hand down. So that is a pretty, you know, it's not the world's most machined knife. But then you come to something like this, the TJ Schwarz designed and Millet produced Torrent 3, and there's a ton of work here. Like, even the clip is like a multi-tiered surface, right? So there's like this little cross piece right here, and you can see that it's actually machined down a layer from the main clip, which itself is machined from a pretty substantial piece of titanium. And then you have the geared back spacer. You have the machined accents for the screw heads. Everything about this knife just screams like attention to detail. And it's actually quite a big blade. It's, you know, it's not, you'll see here, it's a substantial blade, right? Like, it's basically the same size as the ZT0545. But it's just a very slim profile. It's not extra thick. I mean, it's, you know, it's pretty thick, but not super thick. And it has a really nice height to it. The flipping action is excellent. Really, really good. I mean, just dialed in. It is a harder detent than a lot of the knives that are being made on the production market side, but it is a really good flipper. This is a sweet, fun knife to own, and I'm glad I got a chance to buy it. If you're looking for one of these knives, you should probably follow them on Instagram. Their website is basically useless. I wish that would change, but it doesn't look like it's going to. Just so you know, this is what I'm carrying in my pocket today. I love the machining on this guy too. This is the Boss 35. Torch Lab Overready Boss 35 Gen 1 aluminum. This thing looks freaking sweet. And it looks sweet not only because it was made to look that way, but because I've carried it and used it a lot. So I figured these two would make an excellent pair in the pocket today. I hope you have a good week, and look for a review.